The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
If you love the entrepreneurial journey, how about subscribing and giving us a 5-star review? Wherever you get your podcasts, follow or subscribe and give us a positive review so more entrepreneurs out there don't need to feel alone. Thanks. Oh, here we go, connected. Hooray! Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We have had to move to Zoom because Zencastr was at work. The Wi-Fi gremlins are busy today, messing up our recording. But I wanted to introduce you to the amazing Carmen. Hello, Carmen. First of all, what a fabulous name.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for having me on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, Carmen, your surname correct? Sederino? Sederino? Is that how you pronounce your surname?
Yes, Sederino. Well done. It's Italian.
Italian. I was hoping it was Italian. I'm learning Italian on Duolingo at the moment. And I'm just about to join the Italian Institute in Edinburgh. So there we go.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Congratulations. I'm sure you know a lot more Italian than I do because it's my husband's surname.
Fabulous. Right. Now, Carmen, you're a storyteller. How does one go about creating a business being a storyteller? What's that pathway like?
Really good question. Well, I like to think of myself, yes, we absolutely help clients tell stories. And more than that, we help them put together a full presentation or public speech, which certainly involves a lot of storytelling. And how I got here, well, I actually was a very, very shy child who somehow ended up being on stage in theatre. So my teachers, I always remember them saying to my parents, wow, I can't believe that's Carmen up there, because I was one of the quietest childs in the classroom and I would get very embarrassed if I had to be up in front of the class. But you could put me on stage in front of hundreds or thousands of people and I would absolutely shine. So I had this love of theatre from, 8 years old all the way through high school, and ended up doing a degree at university in performing arts. It was called a Bachelor of Performing Arts at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. And my dream was to become an actor. That didn't come to fruition. I did a few little bits and pieces here and there, but I wasn't really satisfied keeping my days free for auditions and waitressing at night time or doing whatever job I could do to keep that flexibility in my day. So I ended up working for a large corporate company, and I just found myself being promoted through the ranks into different positions. And on reflection, I realized that it was my communication skills and ability to speak out to groups of people that led me into those leadership roles. And in the end, I was in sales and marketing roles within that company, running national and international teams. After I did that for 18 years, I decided that I needed a challenge, and I thought, why not go and run my own business and become an entrepreneur after having a very safe 6-figure income with cars and phones and computers all provided for you. Let's go and just leave all of that and have nothing, and have the challenge of trying to start that from ground up. And my passion was to help others who are brilliant, generally brilliant at what they do, and have a great gift that they should be sharing with the world, but for whatever reason, either don't have the confidence or the skill to get up and be able to, I call it being able to shine from the inside out. So illuminate their story, hence the business name Illuminated Story, out to the world, and share their messages with impact, and be the leader that they were destined to be.
Wow. That's from being so shy to performing in front of thousands of people. The Mel B from the Spice Girls talked about that on a podcast I was listening to the other week. She said, I'm hopeless one-to-one or in a small group, but put me in front of thousands, tens of thousands. That I couldn't get my head around that at all, because that's some people's worst nightmare, isn't it? What do you think that
Yes.
was about, Carmen?
It is an interesting question, and it's one I've definitely reflected on. And I think if you look at a lot of actors, famous people like Mel B that you were talking about, and a lot of very good actors are actually introverts. And for me, it was about when I was up on stage, I was actually playing another person. So it wasn't me up there being exposed and being seen, it was somebody else. And I think for me, that was the big difference. And so when I got into the business, and I ended up, first of all, in a state role within Australia, where I all of a sudden did have to speak out to groups of people, I felt just as awful as a lot of my clients do now. I felt sick. I felt like, oh my goodness, can I do this? Because that was me. That was me up there instead of the character. And so it was the skill set that I'd learned through acting that I was able to bring through and help myself gain the confidence. And I think once you gain the skill, you can become confident in something. So I had the skills already. I just needed to tap into them and use them in that different setting, and be comfortable within myself that I did know what I was talking about, and I did have a message that I could share.
Yeah, I relate to that. I can stand up and talk all day long about culture and business coaching, NLP, all the rest of it. I don't like talking about myself. It's bizarre. It's I completely understand that and get that and relate to it. Okay, so what kind of people do you work with then?
Oh, I'm very lucky to work with a really diverse types of people. Generally, they're people already in senior leadership, wanting to either sort of solidify where they are and have the skill set they think they should already have in that position. Or they're wanting to set themselves up for the next thing. So, for instance, I spoke to a man today who is a chief financial officer for a large business in Australia, and he wants to become a group CFO in the future. It's so interesting, actually, that people can find themselves in these very senior positions, and I'm quite sure their staff would think they're confident and that nothing could rock them. And yet their true feelings are quite different to that. And even though they might be doing it, they don't enjoy it, and it can cause a lot of anxiety. And they truly believe, because generally people in those positions are very driven people. They're determined, they're driven. And so they're determined and driven that they can do this better and they can be more inspiring. And that's why they come and do work with us.
Yeah, a lot of women talk about having imposter syndrome, but in my experience as a coach, I find it equally prevalent amongst men. It's just they don't talk about it. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people in these senior positions, because they're so highly skilled at the thing that's got them to where they are, but all of a sudden, like you describe a group role, that's very, very different set of skills you need to run a group finance director role. Because it becomes so much more about communication and so much less about data analysis and spreadsheets.
It's so true. I agree with you on both points, because I have a lot of men that work with me, because I mean, the numbers are still unbalanced in those senior positions. There's still a lot more men in them than women. I think women are just more open about their vulnerabilities and the fact that they do feel like they don't belong or they have that imposter syndrome. But when you talk to men and they open up to you and you allow them to feel comfortable and to be vulnerable with you, then absolutely they're going through exactly the same feelings and emotions. It's just maybe not as acceptable for them to express that in a more public forum, as it seems to be with women. And yes, so one of the women that I have worked with, though, she found herself in the managing director's chair, and this reminds me of what you were just saying about the technical skill. So she was a trained engineer, that was her background, and she's ended up in this managing director's role. And she said to me, Carmen, it wasn't through leading the teams, it was because I was really good at just sitting in the background and getting the work done, and slowly I just started, climbing this ladder. And then all of a sudden I've ended up in this position where I have to be able to speak out in various forums and to various audiences. And she actually found herself in this meeting room one day where there was 40 people in the room, and when it was her turn to speak, she couldn't do it. So she pretended she had a phone call and left the room.
Oh, bless her.
Which was, well, very sad and incredible. So when she rang me, she told me this story and she said, I know I can never do that again. And what was even more interesting was that when she was younger, so when she was in university, she was up on stages talking in front of people, and she didn't really have a problem with it. So we had to sort of work through where in her career this came from. And I guess the other challenge with leaders is that as you do move up the ladder, you also start delegating more and more tasks. And so some of the things she would delegate would be the delivery of speeches and presentations. And I think the more you do that and separate yourself from it, and the less practice you're getting, the more your confidence levels really drop. But she did amazing, and she ended up saying yes instead of no to the industry events and forums she was being invited to speak at. And so she didn't just get good at speaking in front of 40 people internally. She was speaking to hundreds of people at industry conferences and sharing her expertise, and especially in the women's forums, that in a sector like engineering, where it's still very heavily male dominated, she was able to show other women that you can succeed in those types of careers, which is very inspiring.
Yeah, that is really inspiring. And when you're helping people kind of structure their story, where do you begin?
Good question. So I call it starting in the middle. We have a system, we call it an X-ray system, and there's a 7-step method, and it starts with brainstorming. So in terms of their whole message, not necessarily just one single story, but the whole message they want to share with their audience, really letting yourself just figure out, first of all, what do you need to share? And of course, that's based on who you're talking to and what they need from you and what your purpose is and all of those sorts of questions that you need to answer. But just letting yourself brainstorm that information without opening a PowerPoint slide deck or any type of computer, just letting yourself think first and getting that core message down, and then figuring out, well, how do I bring this to life in a way that's really going to resonate with the people I'm talking to? And that's where you can tap into some of those personal experiences and stories that will help connect, I guess, to the audience that you're talking to. And that's how we start building their stories. And once they sort of shape the message of their story, we look at, okay, so how could we make this even more emotional for the audience? And that's where you might tap into the senses and really work on the way you're describing the situation or the story, so that people listening can really picture it and feel the story and the emotions that were attached to it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Did you know at TriCrest we've built a kick-ass culture, coach and consultant program? So if you're a business coach or consultant and you're looking for something new, add to your toolbox, or even escape the 9 to 5, join us at our next event. Links in the information on the podcast. See you there. Yeah, you've hit on the emotional side of things. I run a leadership program, and the second to last session is about getting your message across, because the last session is delivering a presentation. And we spend a lot of time there, and want your team of one to follow you in a certain direction. Emotionally, the message is emotion. It's not logic. It's not your 12-point plan. It's whatever it is for quality, whatever the emotion you want to invoke. What kind of reactions do you get when you start talking to, really sounds like very high profile leaders, like you got to talk about emotions now? How do they react to that?
Well, it's interesting. I was working with, so I have two streams of clients. I have private clients, like the high level leaders we were just talking about, who come in of their own choice and we work together privately. And I also do work with corporate companies. And what you were talking about reminds me of a group I worked with recently. And they're small groups, maximum of 6 in the room, so we can really tear things apart and dive into it together. And they were all men, and they were all in senior leadership positions. And one of them said, I did a presentation recently and I got the feedback that I really missed the mark. And it seems I needed to add some more stories into what I was saying. And I was trying to teach them how to be a leader. And so we'd gone through all of my frameworks and taught him how to build a good message. And then he delivered it the next day. And he started his presentation, because I always say start with a bang, like start with a story or some kind of hook that's really going to grab people in. And so he started by talking about his nonna and how she was his leader in his life, and all the lessons he learnt through the way that she led the family. And he had us in hook, line and sinker. And he was able to loop back to that story throughout various points of his whole presentation. And at the end, he sort of looked at us all like, was that too much? Like, did I give too much away? Was it a bit too mushy? And the feedback from the other men in the room as well was like, that was amazing. And I said to him, if you want to resonate with your people, you just showed them you're actually a human being, and that you feel the same way that they do, and you have challenges just like they do. And now they can relate to you, and they're far more likely to want to follow you to wherever it is you want to take them.
They want decisive leadership, and they want to feel safe and secure. So they don't want anybody who's too wobbly, but in those moments, they want to know that you feel the way they feel about things that are universal. And then go, oh yeah, you are, like you say, you are a real person after all. And I love the Italian word for grandma being nonna.
Yes.
And it's just a beautiful word. If I ever have another business, I'm going to call it not.
I love that.
So I love the fact that you've structured your business in this way. You've got a really nice mix of private clients and corporate clients. And we train a lot of business coaches. So a lot of them will be going, well, Carmen, how did you find your clients? How did you get started? That's the $64 million question. What are your insights for that?
Oh, yes, it is the $64 million question, isn't it? Because when you've come from a large business where you've got a big job, but it's not your job to go out and get the clients, to running your own small business where all of a sudden, if you don't get clients, then you realize you don't get paid. It's definitely a very big shift and change. So I would say for the first 18 months when I first left the business, from day one, like literally, I finished working in my job on the 31st of July 2018, and on the 1st of August 2018 I had meetings lined up with prospective prospects to try and generate some sales. But I joined networking groups. So I joined local networking groups and went and, pound the pavement and stood up and did my pitch at all of the different groups, and tried to find connections of similar people that, we could refer to each other and all of those sorts of things. So that was probably the first 18 months. I was very lucky. I had a couple of people that reached out to me who had worked in the same business that I worked in and had gone and done their own entrepreneurial journey. And they recommended me to a couple of businesses that they already had as clients, which was very helpful. Although I found myself in those first 12 months at least taking on jobs that weren't exactly what I set out to do, but I could do them and I was going to get paid for them. So I took them on and I said yes. And then at a certain point in time, I made a decision that I had to stop that, and I had to really hone in on exactly why I left to do this. But after that, I felt that I'd started to generate some potential clients who could give repeat business and be good future clients. And then COVID-19 hit, and in Melbourne, Australia, we went into what became about a 2-year lockdown. So lead generation changed significantly because you could no longer go out and see people to network and generate business. And I guess for what I did as well, there was a belief at the time that you can't coach someone in public speaking virtually. It was very much an area where the world hadn't realised how much you can do in virtual settings at that point in time. So it took a while, but I put myself through a course to learn how to network via LinkedIn and to generate leads via LinkedIn, which became a very, very good platform for my business. And for the first time, I put myself out on social media because, believe it or not, I'm a trained actor. I'm teaching people how to speak in public, but I did not want to be on social media platforms. So I was not generating any leads that way, which was just crazy. So COVID forced me into doing all of those things that I should have probably already been doing, and to learn how to do it well, which completely changed my business. And the front room of my house, which was a spare bedroom, became a studio, which is where I'm sitting now. And I've got multiple cameras and TV screens and lights and sound desks and all sorts of things. And I'm very lucky now that I can service clients not only all over Australia, but anywhere in the world that is the right time zone for when I want to be coaching people.
It makes such a difference. I love the journey you have described is exactly the journey that a lot of our coaches go through. They've left the corporate, they realize they've got to go out networking, which they're fine with and they'll do, and they realize they've got to go on social media, and a lot of them have a real mental block about social media. And you've just got to get over it, haven't you? You've just, if you want to, that social media, and out of all the social media, LinkedIn, if you're a business coach, that's where your clients are, is the most benign of them all. It's very friendly. You're not very often going to get a horrid comment. In all the years I've been in it, maybe I've had 2 or 3, maybe 4 horrid comments. That's it. And I think it's very well moderated these days. So even now, I don't think you would get those actually, because it is very well moderated.
It is.
So it's the safest of all.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
I know Tammy in America, she said she wasn't going to go onto LinkedIn because every time she went on, somebody asked her out on a date, and I went, I think it's changed now. Hopefully, no, That's not still happening, but
No, not so much. You can get some subtle messages where you think, do they want to meet for business or just coffee? But you can sort that out pretty quickly. And I think only offering virtual meetings initially until you've sorted out what business you will be doing can help with that. But I remember the coaches I had that taught me LinkedIn to start with, when they first said, you've got to post and you've got to do this, I was like, oh, goodness. Anyway, they're like, just do a video and send it to us and we'll check it before you post it. So I was like, all right. So I did my first video and they're like, Carmen, for goodness sakes, just post it. It's amazing. Like, just get your content out there. And then I started doing it every day. So I post 5 days a week. They're not all videos, but at least 2 or 3 of them are. And it has been the best billboard for my business, especially because of what I do. There's not one sales call I have that's a lead that's come off LinkedIn where the person doesn't say to me, I've watched your videos, or I saw that video the other day, or I saw this video, and now I have to ask them which one. Because the other great thing with LinkedIn is that people aren't on there constantly like they are other platforms. So you can actually regenerate videos that you've done and post them a few months later, and it doesn't matter, which is quite different to an Instagram or a TikTok or a Facebook. And you're right, it is so much more professional and friendly. I've had some very awful comments via Facebook. And when I first started doing some ads on Facebook, I thought, oh goodness, this person doesn't even know who I am. I'm a real person. And the type of things they would say sometimes are really awful. But I guess you have to just think it's either not even a real person, it's potentially a robot, or it's, it's somebody that has so much time on their hands that they're able to think about writing a comment like that, which is not your general population. So you just need to not worry about it, not even respond to it, and just respond to the ones that look like they actually deserve a response.
Completely and utterly. Those ones just go in the idiot pile and never to be thought of, and certainly to be blocked.
Yes, definitely.
That's it. And then, you work with the rest of the population who are really thoroughly business. What's the vision for it?
Sorry, Rebecca, can you just ask that one more time? So it was cutting off.
Have I frozen? Yes. It's all right. Where are you taking the business? What's the vision for it?
Thank you. I would love to service so many more clients than we are currently. So my vision is to scale the business and to have more coaches, because obviously I can't do that with just myself. I have support at the moment from an admin point of view, but my vision is to build a team and to definitely have someone taking over the sales and marketing components of the business, which, as you would know, as a solopreneur, or pretty much solopreneur, that takes up a significant amount of time within your week. And then to have other coaches and specialist coaches. So I would call myself a generalist in this area. I've already partnered with a specialist voice coach who's coming in to do some sessions for me. I'm speaking to someone at the moment about specifically storytelling, and having someone come in to really help craft some very clever stories. And we also help with impromptu speaking, especially with leaders that just have to, respond to messages on the spot often. So I run some of those sessions at the moment, and I can absolutely see that I could hire someone to do that too. So really building a team around me and being able to service multiple countries. At the moment, we've opened ourselves up to obviously Australia, where we're based, New Zealand, Singapore, and West Coast of the US. So we're trying to really find those time zones that really fit into our daytime hours here. And then I think the sky's the limit because of the world we live in and how small we are now as a world in terms of being able to do business and talk to each other like we are while I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and you're in the UK. It's pretty incredible. So I think that the skill set of being able to really resonate with people and share to large groups is so enormous. And I meet with so many clients and potential clients who clearly are very good at what they do, but just don't have this skill. So to be able to get the message out there, first of all, that it is a skill. It's like learning how to ride a bike or play sport. And once you practice something and learn a skill, that's when you become confident in it. I think there's a myth about public speaking and presenting that you're born this way and, you know, some people just have it and some people don't. And I guess like anything, while some people enjoy it more or maybe seem to develop a skill quicker than others, it doesn't mean that you can't learn it if you want to put the work in and do that.
Yeah, completely and utterly agree. So my dogs just are wandering around. The thing about my podcast is my dogs usually get involved at some point during the podcast.
What type of dogs
I've
do you
decided
have?
to not be up to... Well, I've got two. One's a cross between a Tibetan and a working cocker. He's the youngest one. He's Monty. And then I have a little one called Eddie, who's a cross between a Tibetan and a Havanese. He's 9 now, actually, Eddie. What's the time I tried to keep them out, and then I thought, no, they're just going to become a feature of the podcast.
I love that.
They're just going to
Very
be
cute.
included.
You may as well.
They but like
never
you, I'm
work with
busy
animals or
building it.
children.
Absolutely. I'm busy building myself a little studio / library in one of the kids. Two older kids have left home. So I've commandeered my son's old bedroom to that. So that's being done. So soon we'll be moving into the library. And I may ban them there from the studio. Right. Okay. So Carmen, if your business had a personality or a character, either who would it be or how would you describe it?
Oh, do you know what? Before I left the large business, when I was leaving, it was all announced, and I was creating the brand Illuminated Story. It wasn't created yet. I went to the marketing agency, and I had, you know, some of those words I sort of had, but they put it together for me. The words Illuminated Story. And I said, I want the brand to be warm. I want it to be classy, but warm is what I said, because you can associate classy with cold a lot of the time and sort of snobby. But so I wanted it to be classy and warm. And I guess to be able to inspire any type of behavior type or personality. So it doesn't matter whether someone comes to me and says, I hate this, I feel anxious, I'm very introverted, I don't like speaking out, or they come to me and say, I love being in front of the room, I just want to get really good at it. We want to be able to service both types of people. So warm and classy is Illuminated Story.
Lovely. I love that. And my last question, that's a very recent question. What do you think your purpose or your destiny is?
Oh, do you know, that's such a hard question to answer, and I think about it all the time. My latest answer, because I think it can change, is to be
absolutely.
To be a role model for others, especially women. So when I was in my large job, I was in a leadership position, and I have 2 children, so they were babies at the time. I went back to work when they were both 6 months old because I wanted to keep my leadership position, and there wasn't the flexibility that there is today post-COVID times. There's a lot of flexibility and all the rest of it. And there were certain things that happened within the business that I led the way in. So, for instance, they used to just pay you out all of your holidays and long service leave when you went on maternity leave.
Right.
And I went to payroll and I said, I didn't want anything paid out. They're like, oh, that's just what happens when you go on maternity leave. I said, well, that's really sending the message that I'm not coming back, and I am coming back. So can we not do that? Oh, I don't know. Well, let me check. With HR, and I went to HR and they're like, yeah, we'll just change that rule. So, but no one had said anything prior, and there was quite a few things like that I feel like I helped pave the way for, which helped future women. And so I think showing women especially that if you want to be in leadership and you want to have a seat at the table, then you have to develop this skill set and you have to have a voice. And so that is definitely something I'm very passionate about, and one of my visions or goals in life. And on the other hand, I have 2 sons. So I don't have any daughters. I have 2 sons. And so I think it's really important for us to balance all of these messages and make sure that men aren't getting left behind, and that we are creating balance, not another inequality by shifting
completely
the other way.
Yeah, completely. I have 2 daughters and a son. So and I have a brother. I'm in business with him, and I'm married to a man, my husband. So it's having that awareness that it's balance, and actually women and men need different things in the workplace, and that's okay, because men can't have babies. So and men don't go through menopause. So, we need different things, and that's still okay that we can provide that in the workplace. We just have to think about it a bit harder than we do. And that's all it takes. So I don't think we need any militancy. We don't need to get angry with anybody. We just need to work towards, like you said, doing simple things that people go, I never really thought about that. It's lots of series of baby steps, I think.
We just need creativity.
Definitely. Amazing.
Creativity, communication, and to not blame anyone for the way it already is, because whoever put the rules in place probably wasn't trying to make it hard for anyone. They just thought it was the right thing to do at the time.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. Amazing. Carmen, thank you so much. And thank you for your patience with our internet gremlins.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. And I hope that all of the answers have come across with our internet challenges, and we'll be able to put something great together for your audience.
Alison is a superb editor, and she'll make it all gorgeous. So thank you so much. And I wish you the best of luck with your business. Chris Taylor is building a business around social selling, and he's doing it in partnership with one of our previous podcast guests, Nick Jones. And together they're launching something that they tell us is very special. So find out how Chris got to where he is today, how he built and lost fortune, and why he's doing what he's doing. He's also about to go off traveling around the world as part of that business launch. Fascinating insights into where this guy ticks.
The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass.